everybody on council. Good to see you. Eric, staff ready? Yes, sir. Good evening. It's my pleasure to call to order the Tuesday, November 10th meeting of the Mount Pleasant Town Council. It's good to see everybody here on this rainy night. I want to remind everybody, in accordance with Governor McMaster's Executive Order 2020-63, council chambers are limited to 50% occupancy. Item number 1 on our agenda is a prayer by Chaplain Dale Norman, followed by the pledge by Mayor Pro Tem Tom O'Rourke. And let us all be mindful that tomorrow is Veterans Day.
I invite everybody to pray with me. Our Father in heaven, we do thank you for the rain. We thank you for the sunlight. Father, I thank you for these people who dedicated their life to our first responders, our police, our fire, EMS. Father, just put a hedge of protection around them. Father, I just ask that your wisdom comes down on this council tonight to where they can have unity. Even though there's difference of opinions, there's civility, and they hear each other and work through the issues. Father, we just honor you, love you, and thank you for loving us. And it's in your holy name that I pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Item number 3 is approval of the agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
A second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item number 4 is a public hearing that will be run by Mr. Ulma. People will be invited to speak. If you're here to speak to that subject, at the end of that, we will gavel the public hearing closed. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Yes, this is an advertised public hearing. It's the second public hearing on amendments to the development agreement for Carolina Park, and it relates to the changes that you see later on your agenda for the PD amendments and the development agreement. These are under old business B1 and B2. The PD is incorporated within the development agreement, therefore the development agreement also has to be amended in addition to the zoning. I'll turn it over to you for the hearing.
Thank you. Is there anyone here from the public here to comment on the topic of this public hearing? Anyone at all? Last call. Yes, ma'am. Please come forward, name and address, and 2 minutes, please. Glad I saw you back there.
Hi, my name is Lisa Ernest. I live at 4106 Maidstone Drive in Mount Pleasant in Carolina Park. And it's a good thing this meeting began with a prayer, because I think many residents in the Carolina Park area are going to have to pray a whole lot more if the communications tower is put near the children in their community. The proposed location is the exact area in which children run and play sports. Additionally, the tower will be directly in the neighborhood that currently houses thousands of children. This concerns me due to the fact that according to the radiationhealthrisk.com, cell tower radiation is very harmful. It disrupts your body's own EMFs, causing many kinds of health problems, such as headaches, memory loss, cardiovascular stress, low sperm count, birth defects, and various types of cancer. There are literally hundreds of peer-reviewed studies by non-biased scientists from all around the world that show these harmful health problems. I would have prepared more in-depth scientific findings for you if this agenda item at your meeting tonight was made publicly known in a more timely manner. But it's my hope that the distinguished members of this city council will reflect upon those children in your lives that you hold dear and know in your hearts you would not want them playing near a communications tower in the very area where they frolic and play and embrace their childhood every day. When did cell phone connectivity become more important than children's lives? Thank you.
Anyone else? Anyone at all? All right, this public hearing is closed. Item B is longevity awards from the Police Department. Chief Ritchie.
Ms. Ruth Tucko, will you come up, please?
I know.
Mayor and council members, I have the honor and the privilege tonight of recognizing Ms. Ruth Tucko for 25 years of loyal service to our town. Ruth began her career with the town in 1995 as a police dispatcher, performing the critical role of linking our citizens in need with the officers on the street. While serving as a dispatcher, Ruth carried out her duties in a courteous and professional manner, ensuring citizen concerns and needs were met while making sure the officers on the road had as much information possible to safely respond to any incident. In 1998, at her request, Ruth transferred to the position of patrol receptionist, where she not only met and directed citizens that entered the police department to get assistance, she also spoke with these citizens on the phone and in person and handled police reports at her level, allowing officers to stay on the road to answer more urgent calls. In 2000, Ruth was selected for the position of administrative assistant for our investigative bureau. During this time, she managed the day-to-day administrative duties in support of the detectives assigned to the office. This included, but certainly not limited to, routing the calls to appropriate detective, helping prepare case files for regular court appearances, as well as grand jury presentations. Ruth held this position for 13 years, but knew she had a much bigger and different calling. In 2013, Ruth answered that call and assumed her current position as a victim advocate. Ruth has a heart for helping those that have been a victim of crime. Although she assists all those who've been victimized, Ruth's true passion is helping victims of domestic violence. She comes out after hours as needed and meets with these victims, reassuring them that they are not alone. Ruth helps these victims as they work their way through the court system, ensuring they understand the process and their rights. As a victim advocate, Ruth provides aftercare for those victims of domestic violence with follow-up phone calls, visits, and support groups. Ruth is such a vital part of the wellness of the town of Mount Pleasant citizens and has done so much to make our victims whole again. Ruth, I want to thank you for 25 years of dedicated, professional, and loyal service. Congratulations.
That all of them, Eric?
Yes, sir.
Item 5 is approval of the minutes from the September 15th, 2020 and September 25th special town council meetings and the financials. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Item number 6 is public comment. When you are called, please come forward, give name and address, and you have 2 minutes to speak. Would like to begin this. Representative-elect Bustos, if you would come forward. No stranger to this body, many years on council, will now be representing us as the first resident member of the legislature from the town of Mount Pleasant in 30 years. Mr. Bustos.
Thank you.
Joe Bustos, 649 King Street here in Mount Pleasant, and I'll be very brief. I just want to tell you that while I am going to Columbia, I am representing District 112, which is Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, and a fairly good piece of Mount Pleasant. And I want to be your representative. If you have something that needs to be looked at in Columbia, I'm only a phone call away. And that's the way I want to do that, and I want to be accessible, not only to the residents, but certainly for the governments. And I've already spoken with Sullivan's Island, Isle of Palms, and now Mount Pleasant. So please, if you have any question or anything you want done, give me a call. Thanks again.
Thank you, Joe. Congratulations.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, we have several speakers this evening. The first, I'm going to ask you to come up 2 at a time, please. The first will be Freddie Jenkins, and then followed by Robert Hill. Mr. Hill, if you'll stand behind him, that would be great.
And the timer is working, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Freddie Jenkins, 435 Hattie Street. My concern is about, I came here about 2 months ago, and we talked about the cell tower that this company wanted to put on my street on Hattie and Snowden. And since then, as I looked at the agenda, I don't see it on there, but I see the cell tower that is going to be located on Long Point subdivision. So my concern is this individual, is he still going to put this still want to put the cell tower on Hattie and Snowden Road? Do anyone know?
This is public comment.
Sir?
This is public comment. We don't engage. We
Oh,
listen.
you don't
Yes, sir.
engage?
Right.
Okay, well, I oppose any cell tower that is that close to any individual house. It's maybe about 100 foot from my aunt's house. And also, when I went back on Long Point subdivision, saw where they want to put it by the playground, I oppose any cell tower that could close to where children is going to be playing. Thank you.
Mr. Hill, come forward, please, followed by John Pontieri.
Yes, good evening. I'm here for the communications tower in reference to the communication tower at Long Point. I'm in support of it. I go back to the park and walk, and there's very limited coverage. It is adjacent to a playground, but it's similar to what's in Park West, that tower there that covers that area very well. So I'm in favor of this to help improve safety in that area. Thank you.
Pearl Askew, you're on deck. Come on, sir.
Good evening, John Pontieri, 42 Milano Street in Hanahan. I've been traveling this part of the road, Long Point Road, for 30 years in my business. I'm in favor of a cell tower. The area has no coverage. I travel, it's sometimes 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a desolate stretch of road, and it would serve the public well. There's plenty of other vehicles out there, during these hours also. So I am in favor of this cell tower. Thank you.
Mike Fouché.
Let me mention one thing at the advice of our attorney. If you are here to address planning items, new business A, 1, and 2, that is the property on 6 Mile Road, that has been withdrawn by the applicant, so it will not be discussed or voted on. Am I correct?
Correct, Mayor. It was this afternoon, so obviously we have not had time to put that out to the public.
Right.
But staff received a letter from the applicant indicating that they wish to withdraw these 2 items. And as such, there will be no need for a council vote on these items as they have been withdrawn by the applicant.
Thank you very much. Just in
So,
case.
good evening.
Hey, good evening, Pearl.
Hope everyone is well. Thank you.
Ms. Askew, you do not want to speak anyway? I've known you a long time, and I've never heard you not want to speak.
The new business has been withdrawn, and the fact that I'm getting older, I'll have to save my good future. Thank you very much. I
Thank you,
appreciate
Pearl.
the opportunity.
You're not getting older, you're getting prettier.
Mr. Fouché, are you here?
I am, but I was here for the 6 Mile.
Okay, sir, thank you. David Aarons and then George Freeman.
Good evening. My name is David Aarons, 2043 Middleburg Lane. I'm here in support of the Long Point Tower. I'm currently the president of the board of directors, or the homeowners association for the board. I don't see the other board members, so interesting. We're here?
Yep.
Oh, here you are. Nice. Thank you. Anyway, I appreciate your respectful consideration of this matter. I've heard 2 concerns as it relates to the tower. Certainly one is a health issue. I'm not going to stand before you and pretend that I'm an expert in that. I'm clearly not. I do know that there's anywhere from 24 to 30 5G towers throughout the town already. I know that one is being considered already. We've spoken about it earlier. I'd venture to say that everyone here in opposition of the cell phone tower probably owns and uses a cell phone on a regular basis. I know that it's clearly a dead spot in that area. I know that, you know, the societal trend appears to be that landlines are being phased out. Certainly, it's a security concern when people are relying on cell phones for 911 or for their children to call or be in contact with family members, and they're unable to get through. So I appreciate your consideration. Thank you very much.
Martin, Deputy?
George Freeman, 1450 Bowman Road, Director of Community Activity for Cage. Since I'm here, I thought I'd come and speak also. On the property on 6 Mile Road with the trailer park, I would just mention again that Cage organization feel that this is a good spot that possibly the town, or either the town could work with the East Cooper Land Trust to talk to the owner to see if they would sell this property to be property that would be preserved for the community and maybe become a passive park for the community. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
James Tweedy?
Passive park. We got plenty of parkland now. We can't do nothing.
To the clerk, sir.
Thank you to the council for hearing me tonight. My name is James Tweedy. I live in Long Point subdivision at 1938 Tyson Lane. And I'm here to talk about the Long Point cell tower proposal. First, let me just start by saying that I'm not opposed to cell phones. I'm not opposed to cell phone coverage in general. I get it. We all have them. They're a necessity of life. But I do have a couple of major issues with this proposal as it stands today. So I'd like to go over some of them with the council. My first issue is with the location of this cell phone tower. If you take a look at the proposal, it's right in the corner of our amenities center within Long Point, which would place it looming large over and directly next to our soccer field, our basketball courts, our volleyball court, our playground, our swimming pool, and our tennis courts. Now, I have to tell you that as a parent of 3 children, I do not feel comfortable with them playing in the shadow of this cell phone tower. I mean, the fact is, nobody in this room can tell me with any level of certainty that it's safe for my kids to be there directly underneath this tower trying to enjoy the amenities of our neighborhood. I feel like if we need cell phone coverage improvement that bad, which frankly we kind of do in our neighborhood, we need to find a different place to put this thing. And it needs to be not where our kids are playing. The second issue that I have with the proposal was the process that it took and the process that leads us here today. Long Point is a neighborhood which is governed by covenants and restrictions, like most other neighborhoods in this town, and frankly requires a 2/3 majority to get most major decisions done. Yet somehow, this proposal was never put forth before our homeowners for a vote, either in support of or against the cell phone tower. Instead, it was kind of railroaded through by a number of individuals. And frankly, I feel like this has been an attempt to push this through without proper input, approval, or coordination within our neighborhood or in our neighbors in the enclave and along Needle Rush Parkway. So I ask the council to please reject this proposal. Thank you.
Casey Can?
Good evening, Martin, Deputy 365 4th Avenue, Mount Pleasant. I'm here in support of the cell tower. I've handed out a little package, pictures worth 1,000 words. The first page shows where the location would be. The gentleman spoke before that it would be close to the pool, tennis courts, and other stuff. You can judge by yourself if that's the case. The long strip to the left of the tower is a transmission line with many tall power lines that go through there. Right behind it is the sanitary sewer, the AT&T easement for communications, and the water department. So this is where the Homeowners Association Board of Directors and the society decided would be the best location away from the most folks and meet that. The other pictures here, I'm sorry about the color. It is a tree, monopine. So the first picture, number 1, there's a palm tree to the right. There's a little tiny little nudge. That would be seeing it off the intersection of Royal. We went around and did these photos throughout the neighborhood. The second one is, again, seeing just the very tip of it from a distance. This is, we then have Point Landing Drive. You can see the power poles that are in front of it on this particular picture. And then you can see from one of the homeowners association, some of the tennis courts, the tower monopole in the distance with the camouflaged design. The design also is shown here on Royal Drive. So basically, the map at the end shows you, I think it's printed on the back shows you all the locations as we circled around. So we've worked really hard with the homeowners association to get this where they wanted it, to get this technology done, where it would work, and where it would be least intrusive. Thank you.
Angie Odachowski. First was Casey Can. Are you here, sir? Yes, you're up, sir.
Evening. I'm actually the real Casey Can. I live in the 400 block of Springfield Road. In regards to the cell tower, I am neutral. I understand why people want it. Many work from home, especially during the pandemic. I also understand why many oppose it. To my knowledge, a large number of our residents oppose, many of them concerned about the health and well-being of their families at the pool and soccer fields. Again, I am neutral. The issue I have is not knowing that this meeting was taking place until late this morning. Our neighborhood has several channels of communication that were not used. This morning, it was a resident's handmade sign posted at the only exit of Long Point that informed anyone of this meeting. It started the conversation. So if you never left the neighborhood, you were not given the opportunity at all. Seems deceptive by the powers that be to not properly inform the residents in time to gather their thoughts and attend, whether they're for it or not for it. Cellular tower is a large and extremely controversial issue in any residential area. Less than 12 hours to have a conversation and move forward is unacceptable, especially for those who are unaware of what's going on in that neighborhood of ours that we have invested. Sad to think you go to bed and wake up to an approved tower that you never had any say in. Thank you.
Andrew Odachowski.
Hello, my name is Angie Odachowski, and I live on Annie Laura Lane. I've lived on Annie Laura Lane for almost 3 years. Before buying our home, we had my husband and I had the understanding that we live behind a recycling transfer station. I know a couple of you are aware of our situation. But recently, the transfer station received $30 million, and I'm proposing, I guess my main complaint issue is, so I live right behind this massive dump, and they are so loud and constantly smashing things, lifting it up. I'm not really sure what they're doing. I do know they are not DHEC, or they're not up to code with DHEC currently. I met with the people, I forgot his name, and he showed me the plans to see if he could consider hearing my voice and other residents that live on my block about, like, what can we do? Can you just move this across the street? It is so loud. It's on Saturdays. Some days I'm laying in my bed at 7 a.m. and I could feel the wall shake. I recently tested positive for COVID, and because I did, I had and my kids tested negative, and because of that, I had to quarantine with them for 28 days, which, that's already painful as it is. However, like, you would think the joy, okay, we're home, let's go in the front yard, let's go in the backyard. Well, going to the backyard is not really an option for us because it can get so loud, and the pollution from it, like I said, it's not even up to DHEC standards. So I'm like, it makes me just really sad to know, like, oh, that's an issue, and they just got $30 million, and I met with them, and when I was looking at their plans, I saw they're not willing to relocate, but they're willing to build this new gym for all their employees, and it's just, and I had no idea that this was even an issue. Like I said, when I bought my home, I thought they had the plan to relocate, because Mount Pleasant's the fastest, okay, my husband's there.
Thank you.
Thank you. Matt Midkiff. Hold on one second, sir. Mr. Odachowski, were you going to speak?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Andrew Odachowski, And me and my family live at 2170 Annie Laura Lane. Since we moved in February 2017, the transfer station noise and pollution behind our yard and our neighborhood has been troubling and has had a big negative impact on our livability. I had called to complain about the noise several times over the past few years. And, I was told, oh, we'll look into it. Oh, we have plans for that facility, blah, blah, blah. And, I'd asked what the deal is. Right now, there's a 70-foot barrier of trees behind our yard and the transfer station. There's a very small fence. It's super, super loud back there. And so we got together with our HOA last year and, wanted to do something about it. We met with Jordan Peele, and, he gave us the plans of the $30 million expansion project to upgrade the facility. It's, not up to code as it is now. But basically, the new plans, as we were shown, are going to make, instead of right now there's dirt where they're dumping the stuff on, they're going to put concrete down, which is going to be even louder than things falling on dirt. And then also their plans to make a three-sided metal sort of enclosure to where the dumping is supposed to go. And I said that, seems kind of ridiculous and against common sense. And even the engineer sitting with Jody said, yeah, it's probably going to make the noise worse for you guys, not better. So we were very disheartened when that all happened. And we've been, fighting and talking to Gary Santos and Kathy Landing about what we can do as a community to, our whole street, there's 4 new houses that are being built as we speak, and then there's 9 more lots on Annie Laura Lane that are going to be residential living. And the transfer yard current plans have a maintenance.
Please finish up.
Yeah, maintenance and noise. We propose that the town look at changing these plans to move the transfer yard where the noise is to the other commercial side that you guys also own on Sweet Basket Parkway.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Midkiff, you're up, sir. Next is Nick Wyndham.
My name is Matt Midkiff. I live on 2060 Hallahan Court in Long Point. I'm 100% for the cell tower. I work from home. I get calls dropped daily. I feel like the old Verizon commercial. I have to walk outside. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? It's very frustrating. We had a car chase in our neighborhood a couple weeks ago. The only way I knew about it was through Facebook, and we started thinking, wow, what if we needed to call 911? I guess we can't. Can we email them? Can we Facebook somebody? So, it's a real concern. As far as cancer, I don't know if it does or doesn't. I don't think a lot of people do. But I know we're the 4th largest city in the state. We've got 5 G towers. Why not keep up with technology? And until they can prove something, I'm all for it. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Matt Everson.
I'm Nick Wyndham. I'm speaking on behalf of John Chalfie on the Monopole Cell Tower in Long Point subdivision. Dear Mary Haney and town council members, my name is John Chalfie. I served on the town board of zoning appeals from 2010 to 2015. During my tenure on the board, I took a particular interest to provide the town with the best possible wireless infrastructure. Now more than ever, I want to emphasize my strong support for the new telecommunications facilities in Mount Pleasant. I strongly support to request to amend the Long Point PD in order to allow for a monopline communication facility located off of Mount Royal Drive. The cell service in Long Point has always been quite sporadic. This poor service creates both security concerns and internet access issues. This is particularly troubling when we are unable to connect to 911 emergency services from our cell phones. Most of the other neighborhoods in Mount Pleasant do not have this issue with cell service, and I have several friends who have complained to me about it. As I understand it, the situation has been exacerbated the past few months as many people are working from home, and in addition to our kids attending school remotely. I have reviewed the proposed location and design of the monopline communication facility and feel that it is appropriate for Long Point and fits in the context of the neighborhood. The monopline will be located next to a very large Dominion transmission line and Mount Pleasant Waterworks pump station, which presents the perfect location for a facility like this. It seems that every effort has been made to deliver long overdue cell service to Long Point in the most visually pleasing manner possible. We desperately need this addition to our communications infrastructure, and I urge you to approve this request and help solve this problem for our neighbors. I was planning to attend this meeting today, but I'm unable to do so. Please accept this letter as my strong support for the proposed tower. Thank you for your time, your service, and consideration. Thanks, John. Do you need this for your records? Okay, okay.
Mr. Everson, you're up. Mr. Cunane, you're after Mr. Everson.
Good evening, council members. My name is Matt Everson. I've been a Long Point resident for about 20 years. I live at 324 Wild Horse Lane. I'm in favor of the tower for the following reasons. I too am a business owner, and I work primarily from home. I have drop calls several times a day in the middle of conversations. It's very frustrating. On hold with AT&T or DirecTV or a healthcare provider, and it drops in the middle of it. Very frustrating conducting business. I'm not able to communicate with my children who go to the pool. I've got a 16-year-old and a 13-year-old, and they go to the pool. I'm not able to communicate with them sometimes because of the lack of cell coverage. First responders is also a concern. As bandwidth continues to grow with the demand of gaming and things like that, and everybody using their cell phones, I want to make sure that first responders are able to get to my house and get to your house if you live in Long Point. I'm so in favor of the proposal. I did a petition, and I have copies for everybody here. Of the 20, may I approach and bring
To the
them?
clerk,
Yeah.
please.
Of the 25 homes that I Of the 25 homes that I surveyed, or I went and asked them specifically face-to-face, door-to-door, if they were in favor or against the cell tower. Of the 25, all but one were in favor of it. None were against it. One abstained from sort of being for or against because she said, I'm an uneducated participant. I don't know enough about the health concerns. She had 2 young children. Also in that package is a letter from Nick Collins. He's a former town council member, former member of the Planning Commission, and is a real estate agent right now. And he's concerned about property values. And you can see in his letter that he's for this as well. Thank you very much for your time.
Lisa Ernest? Okay. Jody McInerney?
Kevin Cunane, 3032 River Vista Way. As you know, I'm a former council member. I've been watching the meetings ever since I've been out, not because I like to, but because I like to keep my finger on what's going on in the town and whether we have a good government or not. And here's the problem. I sent you an email, everyone on council, an email today about last month's meeting. And believe me, I don't want to sit there and parsing this stuff, but at some point it needs to come out, okay? At 1:03 on the video, something favorable to the mayor, people started clapping and screaming. There was no gavel. But the 3 prior meetings, numerous times, when the people who, your bosses out here were clapping, then it was a problem. At 1:33, the mayor's actively arguing with Ms. Landing to the point where Mr. Rambo, at 1:39 on the tape, had to say, please stop, in his principal or teacher voice. Okay? And then we have the issue of paid witnesses. We have people that come in, and instead of everybody knowing in advance, hey, there's going to be an administrative nurse from ROPA coming in, there's going to be the CEO of a nonprofit that's partially funded by the town who's going to come in and speak, the mayor will bring these people in under his comments, kind of ambushing all of you. Nobody knows in advance. You can't talk to them and get your ducks in a row, but the mayor uses it under his speaking time instead of at the beginning, which would be the fair way to do it. So what I'm asking you to do at some point, take a look at Robert's rules, and when he acts in an unfair manner, which is frequent, overrule him. Suspend the rules, which is allowed by vote, or overrule the chair, because enough is enough. There's all talk, his Twitter account is all about civility, but when you come to these meetings, you all know you've been working with him. It's not how things are run. It's run in a way that it's disrespectful to all you people and the citizens who put you there, so thank you.
Jonathan Yates?
Good evening. I'm Jody McInerney with Charleston Appraisal Service. Our firm has performed 2 surveys and analyses to determine the effects that cellular towers have on property values. The first was involved the Tower Farm near the corner of Venning Road and Hungry Neck Boulevard. This is an 11-acre parcel with 4 communication towers that range in height from 300 to 800 feet. We looked at 4 similar neighborhoods, one proximate and adjacent to the Cellular Tower Farm and 3 greater distances away. In all 4 cases, or all 3 cases, it was shown that property values and rates of appreciation in the neighborhood nearest the Tower Farm were as high or greater than the other neighborhoods. The second survey involved rates of appreciation in 2 neighborhoods in Mount Pleasant before and after the construction of cellular towers in these neighborhoods. These were Dunes West and Charleston National. And in both cases, rates of appreciation and property values in these neighborhoods were as high or higher after the construction of the cellular towers in those neighborhoods. Similar to electrical lines and telephone poles, cellular towers have become a normal and necessary part of the urban landscape. The market, based on our surveys, the market has shown that they have no impact on property values. Thank you.
Jerry Lips.
Thank you very much. Mayor, members of council, Jonathan Yates. I'm actually before you tonight on 2 items, so I just wanted to tell you that my team and I will be here on both items as you deliberate if you have any specific questions. Some questions, though, came up earlier tonight about 5G. You know, I used to say nothing good comes out of Columbia, but I know something good is going to Columbia. But recently, Governor McMaster signed into law the South Carolina Small Wireless Facilities Deployment Act. I hate to read to board, but let me read just very quickly the findings. And this was passed, I think, unanimously in the Senate, all but 1 vote in the House and signed by the governor. They found wireless and broadband products and services are a significant and continually growing part of the state's economy. Accordingly, encouraging the development of strong and robust wireless and broadband communication networks throughout the state is integral to the state's economic competitiveness. Rapid deployment of small wireless facilities serves numerous important statewide goals and public policy objectives, including, but not limited to, meeting growing consumer demands for wireless data, increasing competitive options for communication services available to the state's residents, promoting the ability of the state's citizens to communicate with other citizens and with their state and local governments, and promoting public safety. A lot of good things are coming to Columbia, but it's good to see something good coming out of Columbia even before Joe got there. This has been a year, everyone. 2020 has been a year that we hope to have in our rearview mirror. There's been a presidential election, I think it's still going on. There have been social protests, there have been COVID-19. But if you look back to June 15th, something incredible happened. For 13 hours, the country went into an absolute panic. What happened? For 13 hours, T-Mobile was unable to process most calls for data and calls. The nation was in an uproar. The feds launched an investigation. But you know what? If you live in Long Point, it's not 13 hours,
please.
it's every day. Thank you.
Alicia Mendocino.
Hi, I'm Jerry Lips. I live at 2061 Arundel Place in Long Point, and I'm here tonight as a resident, a board member, and a professional that works from home. So as a resident, I've lived in Long Point since 2013, and it would be really nice, to be able to make a cell phone call from your home, whether personally, professionally, or trying to reach a doctor to make an appointment. As a board member, I disagree that this has been some secret that we've kept from the neighborhood. We proactively have had meetings over the past several years. We, at least as myself as a board member, have not received any phone calls, emails, or knocks on my door from anyone who said they didn't know about it or it was some surprise. I think we did our research. We've put it in an area that is as safe as possible. It's going to be aesthetically pleasing. And as a professional, I work from home and I'm a realtor. And I can tell you right now, when you're driving people through Long Point and they want to pull up a house on Zillow on their phone and they can't get any cell phone reception, they're not really thinking this is a neighborhood you want to be living in 2020. So I think that we've done our research, and I think we've gone to great lengths to educate our community. And there's a lot, not a single resident that I've spoken with was against it, but unfortunately there's time constraints where a lot of times people couldn't come to the meeting last week because it was in the middle of the day, or today at 6. But I'm very, very much in favor of the cell tower. Thanks.
Scott Price.
Good evening, all of you. My name is Alicia Mendocino. I am a resident of Long Point since 1988 and a member of the board. I'm also a full-time professional realtor. I guess that's an oxymoron. Anyway, I do a lot of work from home these days, and it's crucial that I have good coverage. Sometimes I have to walk out on my deck and turn around 5 times to try and get enough bars to make a call. It's quite embarrassing and humiliating to me as a professional to be in the middle of a negotiation and have my call drop, or as someone else said, be on the phone with AT&T or Lenovo, my computer company, and you've been on for 15 minutes and then your call gets dropped, so you have to start from scratch. Contrary to what someone said earlier, we have had, I think, probably 4 community meetings about this very tower. People were encouraged to attend, and there were some naysayers there, but they were not predominantly the majority of the group. So there have been those meetings. And, the board functions, it represents the residents of the town, and we are allowed to, as a board, sign leases, make these kinds of decisions. So this was not underhanded, and nobody went behind anybody's back. We had community meetings. They were broadcast and advertised throughout the community. It is what the board does, among other things, and it's crucial that we get better service than we currently have in the neighborhood. So I hope you all will approve our tower, and it looks pretty, too.
That's all I have, sir, after this gentleman.
Okay, and then I understand some people were delayed because there were accidents, so if you did not get to sign up and you have not spoken yet, we will let you come after this gentleman who I believe did sign up. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Scott Price. I live in Long Point neighborhood at 420 Springfield Road. I first became aware of this possible project last year, and I attended one of the informational meetings on it. I was, to be honest with you, on the fence. And I'm analytical by nature, and I just wanted to really understand. I know that we have extremely poor cell phone coverage, and I'm not very well educated on the cell phone and any possible side effects and so forth. I now come to the conclusion that I really feel from a safety standpoint that we 100% need this cell tower. And I'd really greatly appreciate if you all could really consider that. We really don't know if there is an issue with the cell phone radiation, and if we did, there certainly wouldn't be a lot of cell phones all over the world. So I just from a safety standpoint, I live in the neighborhood, and I would really, with the drop calls, I really need it. And I greatly appreciate your consideration. Thank you. Thank you.
If you did not sign up and you want to speak, if you'd come forward, give your name, address, and same rule, 2 minutes, please. Thank you.
Can I take this off?
Yes.
Because I'm old. My name is Mark Angelino. I live on Richter Way. I don't live in the Long Point area, but I came to the meeting that was in March. And in March, we talked to council members, some of you here and some others. And we left the meeting agreeing that it was not a good place. No one's arguing that coverage is a bad thing. I was in the telecom industry for about 12 years. I was the president of a very large telecom, and I've read a lot of science. And I can tell you that there's a lot of questions, not just thermal, but electromagnetic radiation. I don't disagree with the community saying that they need coverage. I would say, if it were my family, and I was younger than 65 years old, like I am, I wouldn't want it in my backyard and by my playgrounds. As far as the in-home problems that the realtors are having, I'm happy to talk to any one of you because I use a little Pico cell in my house. It plugs into the router, gives me 5 bars of coverage, and I have 1 bar of coverage outside, and it's an easy problem to solve. Can't solve the outside. So I would say to this council, if you have an opportunity to put this tower somewhere else, I would do it. But it's up to you. Thank you.
Next, please.
Good evening. I'm Lance Cleveland. I live at 1945 Devant Circle in Mount Pleasant.
I have a background in applied mathematics and electrical engineering, and I am all for the tower in our neighborhood. I know there's concerns, as the gentleman before me just said, about radiation, and quite honestly, the radiation from other household devices is at least as high as the amount of energy and radiation you're gonna get from a tower that's remotely located. So even a Pico cell, the way these cell phones work, you need to get a certain amount of energy to and from the tower. So what you have broadcasting from your house is actually gonna cause more problems than the tower coming to your house. So, and again, you've heard from everyone else about the dropped coverage and those sort of issues. So I would like to see that tower come in for those reasons. So, thank you for your time.
Next.
Good evening. My name is Matt Goodrich. I live at 287 Beach Hill Lane. It's a location in close proximity to the proposed cell tower location, and I'm here tonight in support of the tower. I think it's needed, and I think it will be safe. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Kenneth Gillespie. I live at 2182 Annie Laura Lane. I'm here tonight to voice my concerns and our HOA's concerns regarding the noise pollution, air pollution, and proposed improvements to the transfer station on Sweet Basket. My wife and I purchased our lot on Annie Laura Lane 7 years ago. We did our due diligence when we purchased. Our concern was regarding the transfer station. I personally spoke to Mayor Swales at the time and was informed the town was going to purchase property to relocate the transfer station. The town did purchase the property, the old Berkeley Electric property, but not for the intended purposes, which was due to the residents in the area objecting to the property being used for trash. Today, the town has grown over 20,000 more residents, and the trash station has become busier, and it's still in our backyard. I've contacted every municipality within 20-mile radius of Mount Pleasant, and Mount Pleasant is the only municipality that has a transfer station. I spoke to several public service departments and questioned them on the reason they take household and yard trash directly to the landfill. I got a similar answer from everyone. Why spend money twice on the same trash? My question to council is, why is the town wasting taxpayers' money to handle the same trash twice? The town should go through an independent financial audit on the current trash practices by public service before any more money is spent for the improvement to the current transfer station. I'm also concerned about the proposal to build a new maintenance garage in our backyard when there is plenty of area on the north side of Sweetgrass Basket owned by the town for a new garage. Annie Laurel Lane is a residential neighborhood which council helped develop. I believe we should get more respect from the town we are paying taxes to instead of being the recipients of a nuisance of a trash dump in our backyard. Thank you for your time.
Next, please.
Good evening, Council. My name is Matt Voss. I'm at 484 Springfield Road. I'm here for the cell phone tower. As I walked in, I noticed that everyone basically has a cell phone in their hand. Progress is not going to stop. 5G is coming, whether you like it or not. I think, that the radiation from your cell phone next to your ears is going to be as high as the radiation from the tower. And I'm in support of the cell phone tower. Thanks.
Next.
Hi, my name is Eric Coleman. I live at 2194 Annie Laura Lane. I also have concerns about the transfer station expansion. Everything Pat said is on point. I agree with him. Just want to echo those. The noise is consistent. It does not stop. We hear it every morning. I have 3 dogs. 2 of them will not walk down my own street because the noise makes them scared. It's loud banging. It's unpredictable, but it's constant in the morning. It'll happen all day long. The expansion will do nothing but hurt our home values, and I would love to work with the council on some kind of solution that we can make this stop and possibly go down. Thank you for your time.
Next, please.
Can I take the mask off?
You can.
Okay, cool. Do I start? I can start now? Okay. Hi, I'm Caitlin Jones, and I too also live on Annie Laura Lane. The transfer station and the expansion of the recycling center was brought to my attention not that long ago. And not only have I concerned, of the lack of awareness and the community outreach on this aspect, for I feel like it's kind of slid through under the radar, but also what it's currently doing in our community too. We live in a residential community, and these are our forever homes. And by expanding this recycling center, you're hurting not only us, but our children as well. So every day they have to hear this noise. They have to deal with the increase in traffic. And I guess the most concerning aspect to me is potential air pollution and any emissions that are emitted from this as well. And I think that any risk that this might be doing to us as citizens and in this residential community, our health and our safety should outweigh any impact. We can achieve that same goal by moving a recycling center to a more industrial community as well. We shouldn't have to bear the brunt of that. And by saying that recycling is more important than our health and our well-being and our quality of life, well, it's a direct slap to us as, as citizens of this community. And anyway, I think that's it. Sorry. So,
Thank you.
But I guess I strongly encourage that we work on a solution to move it, and that's what I'm suggesting. I feel that it is the very most aspect of our quality of life and our health and our well-being that is the foundational of the sanctity of what is important. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Good evening. I'm Bob Hammis. Live in Long Point, lived in Mount Pleasant for 45 blessed years, watched the town grow. Wonderful. Been in Long Point over 23 years. The things we've heard tonight are all good. We're not trying to stop 5G. We need 5G. But if you listen to our teachers, which I think are pretty important, and right now the American Federation of Teachers, which is almost 2 million teachers, have said they've noticed changes in their students. This is K through 12, with memory loss, headaches, etc. Then you go to the American Pediatric Association. 60,000 doctors have said they're worried about the long-term effect of RF radiation on young children, on pregnant women, and probably us too a little bit. I don't know. I'm getting over the hill, so it's not a big deal. But I am concerned about our children and our grandchildren. There's other options where that can go. We were not informed, as these nice people said earlier. I've been there a long time. I've spoken with some of the board members. They're wonderful people. But when you have a meeting with 20 people, and I've been to every one of those meetings, and we objected to the reasons to our children. We gave them stats, and y'all know a lot about it too. And all I can say is, my heart is with Mount Pleasant. I know there's another place they can put that tower. My understanding, when I heard from them, was the county even turned it down for Palmetto Park. They didn't want it in there. Well, we don't want it next to our children and our grandchildren. So thank you all tonight, and please take that into consideration for the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Is that all for public comment? One more?
Hi, my name's Julia Gowell, and I live on Creole Place, and my kids go back and forth between my house and my ex-husband's house on 322 Wild Horse Lane. And I was here at the last meeting where you guys voted it down, so I don't understand why it's up again. But to have a cell phone tower near a playground, near the pools, near the tennis courts, I've heard so much. It's all about money and real estate and values, and I mean, and also I know safety. Obviously, you want to be able to make 911 calls, but there's got to be another place, and that's it.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Brett Hammis, and I've lived in Long Point for a few years. 395 Fly Palmetto Bluff, and I've heard a few things tonight. I think everybody's in agreement that we definitely need better cell service. We better We all want to see the community to have better communications there. On the flip side, I just wanted to read something really quick if you guys didn't mind. But I pulled this off tonight right before I came over from an insurance group, but just bear with me 1 second. They cover accident and health, agriculture, aviation, crime, cargo, casualty, contingency, cyber, difference in conditions, directors, officers, employers' liability, energy, engineering, electrical warranty, financial institutions, legal, fine art, nuclear, liability. I think you kind of get the point that I'm trying to get. They basically cover everything. You've probably heard of them. A lot of guys and people are athletes in sports, but they cover everything. Actors, sports. So if I'm a quarterback and I'm throwing the ball, I get clocked from the side, I'm insured for $50 million. Thank goodness for Lloyd's of London. Do you know who Lloyd's of London will not cover? 5G. Any of the telecommunications covering 5G, they won't cover because they valued the risks going forward with health, and they've said no, it's too high of a risk. So I'm asking y'all to please keep that in a major consideration when Lloyd's of London says no. Also, I wanted to bring up something that a lady just mentioned in the neighborhood as well. I was here for the last meeting with the planning committee, and I think the planning committee found out unanimously, even though we've heard separately from the board, that there was great communication, which there was not. 2/3 of the neighborhood have to vote on something major such as this, which never transpired or took place. In fact, this meeting tonight, we never knew about it. One person in this room fortunately called the city, the town, to find out, hey, what's going on with the Long Point Tower? Oh, we're having a meeting about it tomorrow night. Really? So we didn't even find out. Our property management company never told us.
Sir.
The HOA never mentioned it. 2 minutes is up?
Yes, sir.
I'm longer-winded than I thought. But anyway, just the planning committee did unanimously turn it down, so I'm just asking y'all to respect their wishes as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd ask if there's anybody else to speak after this speaker, would you please go ahead and get up so that we can save some time? If not, we'll know that this is the last person to speak. Yes, ma'am. 2 minutes.
Hi, I'm Nancy Hammis. I was not planning to talk tonight. As I came through, unfortunately, I lost my readers. So I borrowed my husband's prescription lenses, and I really can't read what I want to say. I did want to say, however, that our town, our community has not let the area know about the cell tower. No messages went out, no mail. They said that they sent out e-blasts. They don't have everyone's emails. I went door to door and put out 350 little brochures letting them know that there was going to be a meeting. I am concerned about our children, our grandchildren, the residents there. I mean, they tell you that it is safe, that 5G doesn't penetrate the skin. It does penetrate the skin. It causes all sorts of health issues, not just to humans, but to plants and animals. As you all have probably noticed, there's just a decrease in the insects. These are from the cell towers that are going around. Lloyd's of London won't even insure people because, and they insure everyone, because it's so dangerous. I can't begin to tell you the scientists, the physicists, the people, the doctors that tell you that this is a horrendous thing. There's such an increase in tumors in the brain, in the adrenals, the DNA is changed. There's an increased incidence of Parkinson's, autism. These children, it's from the radiation that's out there. I could go on and on. There's so many physical issues, but there were 14 people here when we met before. And like the gal that said, why are we meeting again? I'd like to know that too. They spoke, they knew about it.
Ma'am.
We have not known, and this isn't just, it's not right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I believe that's it for public comment. So we will move on. Item 7, which is our consent agenda items, items A and B. Is there a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve in a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve the consent agenda items A and B, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Passes unanimously.
That's final reading of consent agenda items A and B.
This moves us to item 8, which is planning, and item A. Under new business, and item A1 and item A2 have been withdrawn by the applicant, so there is no action for council on those. Item number 3, I understand the request has requested a deferral.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
before we
Mayor.
move on from 1 and 2, can I ask a question? Procedural question?
Sure, if a procedural question, yeah.
Yeah, so a deferral, is that legally treated the same as a denial?
Withdrawn.
Or,
Withdrawn.
not a deferral, I apologize, yes, Mr. Chapman. Withdrawing the application, is that the same as us denying it essentially?
Yes, sir, it is, and there's still, for the zoning perspective, the 1-year waiting period.
Okay, would it be legally, so when I did contact the applicant to kind of discuss this situation, and anyway, I think they're really trying to be prudent and responsive to the concerns that came up during planning commission, during planning committee, in speaking with other council members. So am I allowed to make a motion to waive the 1-year requirement?
Go ahead if you were going to answer.
We would handle that with a request from the applicants, and we would take it through this process, and council has to consider that upon their request.
So, Mr. Rambo, to elaborate there, we have had incidents where there has been a withdrawal and a simultaneous request. However, our ordinance requires there to be a written request from the applicant, which I haven't seen. I can't comment for our planning director. But absent that, my position is it would be inappropriate until we have that request from them.
Got it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Are we correct at item 3? They have requested a deferral?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Another deferral.
Another
So you're
deferral. Is there a
meeting
motion
in
to defer?
December.
Move to defer.
Second.
Motion to defer and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to defer, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That is to the December meeting, I believe.
That's correct.
All right. Item number 4, please. Mr. Olma.
Yes, Mayor, Council, this is first reading of an ordinance to amend the Long Point Plan Development District to allow a wireless communications facility on property within the neighborhood. You've heard folks speak to and address this. It's off Needle Rush Parkway, sort of up in the center part of the development. It is designated within the existing PD as a recreation park area. The PD does not address telecommunications towers, so it needs to be amended to add this particular use into the zoning.
All right, and this item was recommended approval 4-0 by the Planning Committee. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve.
Have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion to approve and a second. We are in discussion. Mr. Santos.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I think the first time this started was when they wanted to put the tower by Moultrie, where the water tower was, next to a school, next to where kids will be playing. I think that was shot down. You know, the first tower that we've ever put out there, if I'm not mistaken, was in Rivertown. They wanted to put it, you know, close to the golf course. We had discussions, but they moved it. They moved it back into the woods where the golf carts are. So there's really nobody around there to be around, you know, the towers, to worry about their health. And so when I hear, it seems to me like every time we have a tower come before us, they want to put it where the kids are. And I have an issue with that. You know, Carolina Park, they want to put a tower up. Where do they want to put it? They want to put it on our ball fields, right in the parking lot where our ball fields are. And now with Long Point, they want to put a tower up. Where do they want to put it? They want to put it close to where the kids are going to be. I don't have a problem with the towers themselves as long as they're in an adequate place. that is going to be safe for everybody. Everybody who spoke tonight that came up here, whether they were forward or against, basically said the jury was out on the health. You know, some of them had made some great statements about research that they've done, but even the ones that were for the towers said, you know, I'm not a health expert, I can't comment on the health, but I'm dropping my phone calls. I'm concerned about the health of our citizens, and specifically our children, and I want to make sure that when these are put up, they're put up in a place that is the safest place for our children. So I'm not going to be voting for this, but it's not because I don't like towers. I think they're important and people need to be able to communicate. I'm voting for them because they continue to put them by places where the children are playing, and that bothers me. And I think, like Rivertown, they can find places to put them where they're not by our children and they're not a health risk. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Yes, ma'am, Ms. Lanning.
So first I have a question in regard to this illustration that was given to us that maybe, Mr. Alma, you might know about. There are yellow stick pin little things, push pins, in various locations, and then there are homes that have what look like towers that have what looks like a little tree, almost like someone's put a little Christmas tree on the top of a tower. Is this telling us that already in that general area there are a number of mini towers like this, or what is that trying to tell us?
I'm not familiar with what was handed out to
Okay,
you.
is it possible for us to get an answer?
Yes.
Hi, Martin Deputy, yes. What you're referring to is the yellow pins are where the photos were taken back to do a photo simulation of what you'd see from those yellow pins back to where the proposed tower would be. And then we had a balloon there, and then we superimposed the monopine in that.
So right now, there is no tower anywhere in this current space that we're looking at?
Correct.
Yeah,
There's
these
no-
are just things that are telling us what it would look
What
like.
would like from those points, looking back to the center of the proposed tower, and then each picture is headed with telling you where that picture's from.
And is it correct that this tower that would be in this location at the end, the tip of this field would look like it had like a little tree on the top of it? Is that?
Correct.
Okay, so you actually disguise it essentially?
It's
You
called-
camouflage it?
It's a camouflage stealth monopine. It looks like a pine tree, and so you can't see the antennas and stuff. And those pictures, we can get you some better ones.
No, it's okay,
But they,
okay. All right, so a couple things. So one, when the one that was going to be near Moultrie was brought to, I'm sorry.
Have this gentleman
Ms.
please say his
Landon,
name for the record.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you give us your name, please, for the record? and
Martin
address?
Deputies, sorry.
Thank you. I'm sorry to interrupt. Clerk needed it.
Thank you. So my reason for asking that was when we were doing we were reviewing the request for the cell tower, monopole cell tower in the Moultrie area, and I was concerned. I had never seen this type of request before, so I actually drove out to the one at Rivertown. And we looked and looked and looked. We finally found it, but it was buried between the trees. So Councilman Santos is correct. Just by placing it the way they did, they not only moved it away from where people were actively, I think it was right near where they park golf carts. That's about the only thing back there, and trees. But the other thing that was interesting that day was that on our way back to our house in Dunes West, we went right past, as we always do, the fire station. And I looked at my husband and I said, oh my gosh, there's one right there. Is that correct? Is that correct that there's a big white monopole right there? Okay, so we have a cell tower within, I don't know how many feet you would say from my house, but let's just say within a couple hundred yards, and there's a whole lot of houses a lot closer than I am. We have excellent coverage. I never even noticed this great big white thing, and I bet you if you asked other people, they didn't notice it either. And the only reason I noticed it was because I had just been looking for one over in Rivertown. So the reason I'm bringing this point up is I think the issue of health and safety for our families, for our children, is tantamount, paramount. There's no question that has to be something that people feel confident in. I wonder, there has to be science out there that tells us how far away is a reasonably safe area to be. And the lady that was the homeowners, either president or whatever, that said that they looked at a lot of locations, she certainly said they spent a lot of time figuring out the right location. Maybe this isn't the perfect location, but does our decision tonight, I know that this is only a first reading anyway. If we were to pass this on first reading tonight, wouldn't we be able to come back and maybe make an amendment that they need to look at other areas that are a little further away from this ball field and tennis court and so forth? Maybe they need to go back to the drawing board on the location, or?
The request deals with this
Zoning.
tract of land and that area. And you're not looking at alternative locations other than perhaps on the tract that's identified.
So the PD ordinance.
So the PD ordinance
Right.
would apply to that geographic area within the PD.
So the PD ordinance
if
is
you
only
wanted it
related
in-
to this little area?
Correct.
Okay, got it.
If you
All right.
wanted it in another location, it would be a entirely new
A totally
submittal.
separate request.
There's also been comments about how it looks or the design and those kinds of things. Those aren't conditions of this approval. Additional review under our ordinances is required for all telecommunications towers, and our ordinance spells out a great deal of rules and regulations that have to be met. It could be a stealth or camouflage tower, but that's not a condition or a requirement that exactly be the monopine or the pine tree look. That would come later through site review.
Okay. Well, bottom line is, this is a tough one because it is definitely a safety issue. If you can't get a call through to 911, if you can't reach your child who's at school or they can't reach you, that's a safety issue too. And definitely 5G is coming and it's going to be here, but even what we currently have before 5G, 4G, it's a tough issue, but we've got to do something here. People need the coverage, but they also want to be safe, so we're going to have to figure something out. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Whitley.
So I voted in favor of this at the planning committee meeting based on a lot of the public comment that we received at that, which was mainly from the HOA board, which indicated that they had done their diligence and spoken to the community and gotten that sort of approval. So, but hearing from people tonight, it does seem like a lot of the community was not aware of this and was not given that opportunity to participate in the process of choosing a location. So based on that, I'm going to be changing my position from what it was at Planning Committee, and so I wanted to let you know that.
Yes, sir. Mr. O'Rourke.
I'll add my 2 cents. And this is why it's hard to sit here. It's sort of like the mask meetings. Half the people felt strongly this way, half the people felt strongly that way. But we've got to make a decision. And for me, I care about kids playing soccer and swimming and all that other stuff, but I care about everybody else too. I mean, it's not like, and another thing I did is that I promise I'm not playing video games up here, but I search the internet every time I see something, and I absolutely know that that's not, everything is not always true there. But it's hard to find, even the things that are cited, that there's going to be really bad things if you are near a cell tower. It's hard to, I've looked and I've looked and I've looked. And I don't believe 5G would be out there if it was an extreme danger to the people, quite frankly. So I'll probably be voting yes for this. It depends on what else I hear and how I change my mind, as I do a lot. But I just, and I'm not one that likes to count and then vote the way the most people are. This is important. And we're Mount Pleasant, okay? There are a lot of people working from their homes and professional people that need the latest technology out there. And that's what I think separates our city from everyone else. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you. Yes, sir. Ms. Chapman first, and then Mr. Rambo.
Mayor and members of council, I made the motion to go forward with this for 2 reasons, actually 3. Number one, we had good discussion at the planning committee meeting, and I recognize Councilmember Whitley might have had some changes in her vote because of what came tonight. But I am certain, after talking to scientists in particular, about the RF that they talked about from a cell tower. The cell phone right here that I use every day has more of that than coming out of that cell tower. And that's from people who are in the business. Number two, I guess the second reason is there are power distribution lines on that same property. And the RF from that is worse than a cell phone tower, worse. And I haven't heard any problems from that. And I haven't heard anybody in here tonight saying, take down those distribution towers so we don't have electricity in our homes. So for those two reasons, I'm going to vote in favor of it. And if there is a better location, that's great. But they've already looked at, the fall position, so it's not going to be falling on somebody's home. They've looked at trying to disguise, if you will, what it's going to look like. And I think they've done their homework. I don't live in that neighborhood, but I've got a cell phone tower within 2 blocks of where I live, and I bet it's got a lot more on it than it's going to be on this cell tower. So for all those reasons, I'm going to vote for it and let the neighborhood work with the cell tower owner and distributor to get it in the right place.
Mr. Rambo.
So I am very familiar with this location. We are at that soccer field a lot. And it is, I've always thought, I can't make a phone call, I can't send a text message when I'm at this soccer field. So if one of these kids gets seriously hurt or something like that, that's a concern to me, and a much more immediate concern than some of the other concerns that I have heard. Also, I know in my neighborhood, we have great cell phone coverage, and my kids have those little watch phone things, and we can track them on their GPS, we can call them, we can keep them safe. These parents don't have that same protection, that layer of protection over their children. I have a number of friends in this neighborhood. I heard from most of them, and most of them are sort of neutral / in favor of it. The kind of things that are out there about, 5G, we don't know. But their more immediate concern from the folks that I've spoken with are much more on being able to contact their children while they're away from the home, make emergency phone calls, and to me, that is a life safety issue. So that's why I am very much in favor of it, and will be there a lot.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. Ms. Hyatt.
I'm not sure if we asked at the committee meeting, what's the distance to the closest home to where this tower is going to be? I've been looking at things and it talks about the
Norman, do you want
distance
Mr.
and
Yates
safety.
to answer that?
I believe we did a calculation, and it's in line 5.
I don't remember
The nearest residence is no less than 250
50
feet from that particular location.
Okay, yeah. I have concerns about the neighborhood not being more involved, but I guess we'll have a second reading and maybe we'll hear from more of them then.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
I think,
Ms. Coyle, if you'll pull your microphone down. Thank you.
I'm part of that committee as well, and we had some great discussion, I felt, and asked all those questions and felt really good about it during committee. And I'm just sorry that the HOA or maybe those community members don't feel like they've been told or warned, and I'm sure that's got to be shock value to it. But I, as Councilman O'Rourke, I've been Googling this for, gosh, weeks on end, and you can find both things. I just pulled up the FDA, who says the weight of scientific evidence does not support an increase in health risk from radio frequency exposure. So FDA's got guidelines, the FCC. So I think I'm with Mr. Chapman as well, who said, I think we leave it up to the HOA and those residents to see if there's a better spot within that plot, right, of land. That was it.
Yep. You finished?
Yeah, I'm done. Yeah.
Okay. Anyone else? Yes. Sure. No, you go ahead.
One thing that came up tonight, which I thought maybe it would help to just clear up, we're so used to the schedule and how things run, and a lot of times our citizens aren't. And so there was a lot of commentary about, hey, I went to a meeting, we complained, we did this and that, we spoke, and then it was denied. They're talking about planning commission, and before I was involved in council, I didn't know the difference between planning commission and planning committee, but by going and meeting and learning, I did. And so basically, that is an appointed body of citizens who meet and hear about things. Usually, if it's something that's going to come before the planning committee, it comes to planning commission first. So they did, in fact, vote to deny this for whatever reasons. We often take that into consideration with our decisions, but then it went to our planning committee. So it wasn't an attempt on anybody's part to have this spring up suddenly. Quite the opposite. It's a fairly long process. And it was on the agenda, and we always have to make sure the agenda is published at least 24. And actually, when do we have it out? We usually have it out by Thursday or Friday. Yeah, so pretty far ahead of the Tuesday meeting. So I would recommend that folks, maybe, I don't know, maybe take a look at the agenda once a month just to see if there's anything at tompsc.com. Thanks.
All right. Any other discussion before we vote? All right, the motion is to approve, and this is item 8A4, which is amending the PDA. It's not actually approving a tower, it is amending the language in the PDA. I think we can do this by voice vote. All in favor of the motion to approve, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
By 7-2, the motion passes.
That's first reading, ordinance number 20068.
Let's see, item number 5, 8A5 is an annexation of 1.1 acres on Venning Road. Mr. Ulma.
I move for approval of item 5.
Second.
We have a motion for approval and a second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion to approve, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes.
Number 20069.
Item number 6 is an ordinance to amend the Dunes West Park West Plan Development. This has to do with a church that wants public institution land use designation.
Move for approval, Mr.
Second.
We have a motion to approve and a second. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
First reading, ordinance number 20070.
Old business, item B. B1, an ordinance providing for a sixth amendment to the development agreement between Town of Mount Pleasant and Carolina Park. And I understand if you want to take it from here.
Yes, Mayor, thank you, and council. Just so you are aware, items B1 and B2 reference the same issue. B1 is the amendment to the development agreement, and B2 is the actual amendment to the PD regarding the use. This application was brought forward by what I would call a third party, not the developer, who is CDM of Charleston. And CDM of Charleston has been notified of this process many months ago. There's actually been several attempts, as staff understands it, between the applicant and CDM to have CDM, the developer, participate and get documentation signed or executed as far as the development agreement is concerned. Staff has considered this issue. Staff believes this is a town-owned property. This is a development agreement where CDM, the developer, has obligations to participate in these circumstances and scenarios, and they have not done that. I would like to make council aware that today we received a letter from a representative of CDM describing that their position on the issue that they should be involved in the development agreement negotiation and discussion, as they are a party to the development agreement. And as such, they have requested a deferral until they can have that discussion with the applicant, who is represented here today. As you are aware, this is second reading, final reading. It is my understanding that December would be the final month that this matter can be heard, is eligible to be heard, as this has taken some time. And I merely present this as an option to council to defer. So the benefit, or at least one of the reasons to defer, would be the opportunity for the actual developer and the party to the development agreement and the applicant to at least have an agreement on paper, which would be best for everyone involved. There's no doubt that that would be best for everyone involved. But obviously, if council would like to move forward and vote on the issue, that is an option as well. Staff and legal take the position that what has been done, what is happening is appropriate, and that we have the ability to move forward. So I'm sorry for the mouthful, but I want to clearly articulate the reason why we received this request for deferral, not from the applicant, but from the developer who is a party to the development agreement.
So if we do defer on both of these, it does not hurt the applicant in any way?
I can't comment as to hurt. I would say legally, no, sir. Time is money, I'd assume they would tell you, but legally, I don't. I have talked to Mr. Yates, the representative of them, and I'm sure he would comment on the financial impact or possible financial, but from a legal perspective, no, sir, I don't see any harm to anybody.
Motion to defer.
Second.
Is that for items 1 and 2, or?
Yes, sir.
For 1 and 2. So the motion is to defer items 1 and 2. We have a second discussion. Mr. Rambo.
I don't understand. So we, as the town of Mount Pleasant, own this property,
Yes, sir.
and we somehow need to get permission from a developer? That's kind of a turnaround.
Well,
It's kind of backwards, isn't it?
So, sir, in any development agreement, and this development agreement is in place, and it was agreed to that the town is a party as well as the developer. It is a contractual agreement, and the actual provisions in the agreement require participation by both sides. That is the purpose of a development agreement. What I am conveying to you that this is a unique circumstance. There is a town-owned property in this area subject to this development agreement. And as staff understands it, the actual developer was contacted many months ago. This has been in process for many months and has chosen now to bring forth its concern that they are not a party to this action. But as I said before, staff, legal take the position that it is appropriate for council to move forward with this request based on the facts that I provided.
You still have the floor.
Yeah, I guess I'm good.
Well, I'll
Yes,
ask a
ma'am. Ms.
question.
Landy?
I'll ask a question. I think maybe we're all sitting here a little confused, to be honest. At least I think I am. So we have a final reading. The Planning Committee recommended approval 4-0. We've just had a whole discussion about cell towers and usage, and this is what this is about, is allowing a town-owned park part of Carolina Park Development to have this as a conditional use. And I guess we're just trying to figure out, what does this whole thing of the letter today even have to do with our decision tonight?
Ma'am, I don't believe that has anything to do with the merits of your decision. So that's a good point, and I should clarify that.
Okay.
What it has to do with is item B1, the actual development agreement, which is also being amended. And the developer, CDM of Charleston, as you see on the agenda, is the developer in that development agreement. They have requested the deferral. They are not the applicant. And I'm trying to at least distinguish why that request was made, and so that council can make an educated decision as to whether deferral is warranted. They are not weighing in on the yes or up or down whether it should happen. They are only requesting a deferral so that they can further work on an agreement with the applicant to, I guess, for lack of a better term, to put the development agreement documents so that everything is done absolutely correctly in their opinion. So that's it. This only is a procedural matter.
Does anybody at all know why they would do that?
No.
If you want to, you have the floor, Ms. Lanning.
Okay.
If you want to ask Mr. Yates.
Mr. Yates, do you have any idea why they would be asking for a deferral on this?
You know, I thought I was having a bad day earlier, and it got worse this afternoon. I do not know why they're asking. What I am going to ask you is, this is a process. I started many years ago with my friend Gary Santos. I reached out to Gary to see about the possibility of going on the Carolina Park sports fields. Gary was very kind to me. He invited me to the Recreation Committee. We then went to work with Marcy and Christy Ann and Eric, and over a period of time, were able to enter into a lease with the town of Mount Pleasant for the Carolina Park Sports Fields. We've been in this process for many years, many years. We now find ourselves in a uniquely bad position where technically, yes, I can put off till December, but then my time is run. What I would respectfully request is if we can move on these items, if we need to work out, and again, this application, I'm not trying to correct, we're not the applicant, the town is the applicant, if I'm not mistaken. We're not the applicant here, the town is. If we could at least get the approval on these two items tonight, and then allow us to have the time at our leisure to work out with the town, anything with the developer, but I'm running out of time. I started this years ago. We had a very good planning committee meeting. We had a very good council meeting last time. Gary Santos was mad about me about something else. That's the only reason he voted against me. But I would like, if you can approve where the town says, we think the PD, amendment to the PD is appropriate to allow this facility in the CPAP, Town Park. There's only one. You're the owner of that property. And if you can approve Eric and David to pursue the consent to the development agreement. Get your acquiescence tonight, and then we'll work out the details. If they don't get it, we'll have to come back to you with something, but please don't put me off. We worked so hard, so long on this, not just us, but a lot of the other people in the room, your people. We've worked hard to get here tonight. I would respectfully request not to defer it. Let us be approved, and then we'll work out the details with your staff and the developer.
Thank you.
Mayor, could I have a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a question. And David, you said they had plenty of time to have raised this issue before?
Yes, ma'am. This process, as indicated, has been in for quite a long time, involving the lease, and then, of course, through the process, through Planning Commission, through Planning Committee, and through the readings of council at minimum. So this has been an issue that all parties have been aware of for quite some time.
Okay.
Mayor, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir. Mr. Santos had his hand up.
Well, first of all, I want to say thank you very much. You put that well. I just want to just reiterate, I'm not against the 5G. I'm not. But I'm using Rivertown as a prime example of being able to put it in such a place that it doesn't affect our children. It doesn't affect the health. You heard what they talked about Lloyd's of London. I'm not an expert. You know, you can Google it and go on and see the experts talking to Congress about it. And a lot of them have concerns about the 5G. So I'm not against the tower. Honestly, I want people to have coverage, but I think they can find a better place to put it rather than, you know, in a recreation area where we're going to have our young children. It seems to be, that's the place where they always seem to come up with these towers, wherever we're going to have the most congregation of our children. And I'm sorry, you know, somebody's got to stand up for the kids in this thing too. And so I think it's important that we do have the 5G in towers. I mean, that's what the world is coming to now. But I think they can find a better place to do it rather than on our kids' ball fields. That's all.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chapman.
Mayor, I'm in agreement with Mr. Santos that we need to defer, but not for the reasons he's given. Anytime you've got a potential legal dispute on an item, and we have the ability to come back within a month and get it done, I am in favor of holding to that 1 month and then get the vote then. That was my reason for deferring it. You know, I hate to get to the point where CDM says no or wants a lot of extra stuff that we're not willing to do. And so my point is I voted for it on Planning Committee. I'm voting for it because I think we need the tower. But for 1 month, a legal issue that could stop the whole thing, I think we need to give it a month. And if they, you know, put on notice that if we don't hear something from them in a month, we're going ahead with it, and then we can do that.
Anyone else? Is that two hands or one? Okay.
You go.
Mr.
No, could it stop this, David? I mean, this could stop this?
Ma'am, the only request at this time from the developer is to defer. And as I've said, council's decision on the merits is council's decision on the merits of the action. This would have nothing to do with that. I suppose, I mean, if we were to take all things into consideration, that there could be a legal attempt to try to stop this. As I understand it from CDM's legal counsel, that is not the intent of this.
Okay.
Their position is they would mostly, and to get a little bit further into the weeds, which I know you all really would like to do, is that they are concerned that an amendment to a development agreement would create a precedent for a unilateral decision to move forward. That is at least one of their concerns, as I understand it. But as also stated, this is a unique situation. This is a town-owned property, and we believe it is different. We also believe they have had plenty of notice.
Yes.
But as I always say, we can never, ever say no to that someone might bring legal action. It is always entirely possible, though I don't believe it is likely in this scenario.
Mr. Rambo.
I was just going to say, I mean, unless the deferral's withdrawn, I mean, I plan on voting against the deferral because I think we should approve it. I mean, this is town-owned property. This has been in the works for a long, long time. They've had plenty of chances to get involved if they want to get involved. I don't think pushing the applicant up until the very last legal deadline is the right thing to do. And that's my opinion on it.
Okay. All right. I was going to do a voice, but I think we'll do a roll call. The motion is to defer items B, 1, and 2, so a yes vote is to defer. Madam Clerk, if you'll call the roll.
Mr. Rambo?
No.
Mr. Rambo votes no. Mr. Santos?
Yes.
Mr. Santos votes yes. Ms. Whitley?
Yes.
Ms. Whitley votes yes. Mr. Chapman?
Yes.
Mr. Chapman votes yes. Ms. Corley?
No.
Ms. Corley votes no. Ms. Hyatt?
Yes.
Ms. Hyatt votes yes. Ms. Landing?
No.
Ms. Landing votes no. Mr. O'Rourke?
Yes.
Mr. O'Rourke votes yes. Mayor Haney?
No.
Mayor Haney votes no.
1, 2, 3,
5
4.
to 4.
5, 4 to defer. So items 1 and 2 are deferred until the December meeting. Item B3 has to do with flood damage prevention and FEMA particulars. We passed first reading last month, and we all received an email today with some details about this, but Mr. Ulmer, I'll turn it over to you.
Yes, Mayor, I'll just give you a quick summary. The new FEMA flood maps are complete, and their effective date would be January 29 of 2021. We therefore need to make changes to our Chapter 152, our flood damage prevention ordinance. And there are a set of both mandatory changes that FEMA and the state require, and then there are some other changes that staff has recommended. Since your first reading, FEMA has come back and given us some input, and I'll cover those on 2 points. I'll cover those at the end. So the required revisions are that we need to adopt these new maps by reference. We need to add a severability clause, meaning that if one part of the ordinance is found invalid, the rest of the ordinance stays valid. And we proposed, we need to find a way to exempt accessory structures that are not habitable from having to meet the elevation requirements. So smaller accessory structures would not need to be elevated. At the time this came to you at first reading, the recommendation was 750 square feet for that structure, that accessory structure. That's one of the changes. FEMA has come back and said that's too large, and that number should be 600. So if you choose to adopt this tonight, that provision would need to be reduced to 600 square feet versus the 750. I won't go through each one individually unless you want me to go back. The other revisions that staff have generated are these, that we need to add various definitions. One that's been discussed the most is that the design flood elevation should be set as the base flood plus base flood elevation plus 2 feet of quote-unquote freeboard, as opposed to the 1 foot above the base flood elevation that we have in today's ordinance. We need to change some definitions related to crawl spaces and elevated buildings. It changes a little bit, actually reduces those to make sure they're not enclosed and habitable. Substantial improvements, if you make these incrementally over time, we have to track for 10 years. This recommendation is that time period would only be for 5 in order to continue to meet the ordinance. There are revisions and clarifications relating to how fill material is used, and there's some work changes that are related also to when you do elevate buildings and enclose them, how much space can that be, and how that foundation area is treated for the flow of water. And we also need to add a new coastal A zone. So those are all things that staff has identified as additional changes to the required couple of changes that FEMA has identified. And then finally, again, there is there is a new AO flood zone. It's two small two small areas or bubbles that are actually at the golf course at Patriots Point. We missed those, so we need to make sure we include that particular designation in our ordinance. And again, change the size of those residential accessory structures down to 600 square feet. So final reading could be done with these 2 amendments to what you saw at first reading. Happy to answer questions that you may have.
Quick question for you, Mr. Pagliarini. It sounds like a good bit. Would it be possible to take this back to a committee and bring it back in December just as an option?
I don't believe we're running into any deadlines on it.
We just need
That
to
would
make
be
sure
before
we're in
January?
place
Right.
for when the new maps are effective, having as much lead time as we can to get that information out and set our systems up is also important. But I think we could come back at committee in December, and you'd be here December the 8th.
Yeah, I believe our committee will be actually November 30th because of where Tuesday falls in December. That's just an option, whatever council decides to do. Mr. Santos first, then Mr. O'Rourke.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I appreciate that, Mayor. I think that's a good idea, so that some folks that may have questions can at least still now ask those questions. So appreciate you doing that. Just to clarify and just to make sure, this is only for homes that are in flood zones, correct? If the homes are not in a flood zone, it doesn't affect them.
Right, so it's the FEMA designated flood hazard areas and all the different designations.
I just want to make sure that for people that are listening, so they know, I don't want them to think we're including everybody, but it's only the people that are in the flood zones. Okay, thank you.
And it's all important for our community rating system and the effect that has on flood insurance rates for our citizens. So keep complying with FEMA requirements, making sure our rules and regulations are sufficient and appropriate, all help us in that rating system and actually yield reductions in individual property owners' flood insurance rates. I think our rate now is 20% less than it would normally be based on where we are today.
Okay. Mr. O'Rourke.
Jeff, I had one phone call with somebody that I consider intelligent, normal, all those things. And one of the concerns that they brought up that I didn't think I saw was the fact that our ordinance will exceed FEMA requirements. Is that accurate?
Yeah, the recommendations typically are, you can build to that base flood elevation. I mean,
Right.
you're right there with no freeboard.
Right.
Our current ordinance requires you, the finished floor, that first finished floor to be 1 foot
Above that.
So we would be recommending going to 2 to give more wiggle room, if you will. And that matches, as staff worked on this, did research, and I think we shared information with council
Right.
on all of our peer jurisdictions within the region. Counties and other municipalities have gone to 2 feet. I believe Myrtle Beach actually goes to 3 feet above base flood elevation.
But isn't FEMA like the horse's mouth? I mean, wouldn't they
You
be
can be more restrictive than what they are. You would think that sort of nationally, it's this base flood elevation.
Right.
And then the amount that you go above is a local regulatory choice.
Well, I just feel like they know the flood game better than maybe I do or others, but that was a question I had, but thanks for clarifying that.
Did I have somebody else?
Well,
Okay.
if Ms. Corley has
Ms.
something,
Corley,
go
you
ahead,
may
and then
have
I'll,
So I learned a lot about, not freebasing, but freeboarding. First I was like, free, this is not freebasing. But it just all makes sense, you know, for our insurance and the residents' insurance. To me, it made 100% sense after I spoke with town folks, and I think the one concern, what I haven't spoken to the resident, but I heard that it was a concern about rebuilding and insurance wouldn't pay for the claim and to get it to that status, and that just seems like a communication piece that we can easily be solved by somebody making a phone call. But I would be ready to vote on this. I feel comfortable, I guess is what I'm saying, after reading FEMA stuff and speaking with Eric and et cetera. Thank you.
Mr. Chapman?
Mayor, I'm going to make a motion that we go forward with this, with the amendments that Mr. Ulma has suggested. There's a time constraint, and I realize if we get to the very end, we probably can make it. And I probably need to wait for a second before I further discuss it.
All right,
Thank you.
yes, we have a motion and a second. Let me get clear on the motion. It's to approve item B3 with all of the suggested amendments that came from staff?
Yes, sir.
Okay, with all of them.
Yes, sir. And
What is second, legal? Yes, sir.
We would need first a motion to approve the ordinance, and then a motion to approve the amendments as stated, so.
Okay,
Got it. That order.
I'll move to go
Approve.
forward and approve item B3.
Second.
All right.
And the
We have a
reason,
motion and we have a second. We're in discussion, and you still have the floor.
we all came in here tonight in a pretty heavy rain. We also have a resiliency committee now that's looking at things just like this. It's important that we get ahead of the game instead of continuing to play catch-up. From a FEMA standpoint, yes, FEMA does the bare minimum that Congress will allow them to do before they approve it, because they're looking at several issues. From a cost standpoint, I think if we do something a little bit over what FEMA suggested, I think we'll do better with our flood insurance. So that's my reason for voting to go forward with this and to do it now. There's no reason to wait.
Would you like to go ahead and make the motion for the amendments? Yeah. Which we would
Okay,
vote on?
I will move also that we amend what was item 3B with the amendments suggested by Mr. Elma.
Okay, so the motion, is that a second?
Yes, sir.
The motion is for the amendments as presented. So we're in discussion of that motion on only the amendments, not the ordinance in itself. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Lanning.
A couple things. I do sit on the Flood Resiliency Committee. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have talked a lot about the things that we're facing here in Mount Pleasant and, of course, the entire Low Country, and being able to more than just encourage new development, especially in the areas that are prone to flooding, to be higher and to be protected, and so it just simply makes sense. The water's coming. I mean, it's already here. We see it all the time, and a lot of times on sunny days. And the concern, and that's why I wanted to speak, the concern about the 2-foot requirement came to me from a citizen who is very knowledgeable about the area and does not live in an area that floods. She happens to have excellent drainage in her area, and she says she never has problems with flooding, but she did check into what would happen if you had not a new construction situation like what I thought we were mostly doing, but something where you had significant damage from like a fire or a hurricane wind damage or whatever, and so you had at least 50% destruction, so you had to redo at least 50%, and that wording is in this ordinance. Her concern was that she shared it with several insurance people, and they said that the cost of raising the house up in that reconstruction is not borne by the insurers, that it would be a separate out-of-pocket cost and could cost as much as, she used the example of $50,000 to $100,000. I'm not sure where she got that. But the reason I'm bringing that up is this a concern, and is there a way to address this?
The staff's not familiar with those insurance requirements or those changes. I mean, we're working with applying the ordinance. We can definitely follow up on that component. One, if you continued it, we'd have time, but regardless, if you adopt it, we'll make sure we go back and follow up and see what those costs or concerns are. I mean, if something's damaged more than 50% due to a flood, you're gonna be spending, spending considerable funds just to replace it where it is today. Adding another foot as you might do that, I'm not sure it would be those kinds of dollars in the scheme of having to rebuild a structure anyway.
Right. I guess the confusion is around the fact, she used the example of something that's not caused by a flood, like she does not live in a flood zone, but yet she's concerned that this affects people, that, let's just say, a fire destroyed at least half the house, and the house had to be rebuilt, but we're requiring, so is that then therefore not relevant?
That's entirely different under zoning. That's damage or destruction due to fire or could be flood. This specifically deals with flood damage.
So, okay, so then basically what we just need to make sure our citizens know is that this is an effort to both improve our rating and potentially reduce premiums for folks throughout the community, but also live with the fact and deal with the fact that the water's coming and we want to make sure going forward and not cause unintended consequences. So I guess worst case scenario, if something happens out of the ordinary, we can certainly have the planning department work with them, because we don't want people to be paying all that money out of pocket for something that was caused by an ordinance.
Okay, Mr. Rambo.
So I was pretty confused on this when I got some of the emails this week. So I asked people smarter than me. So I went to a few engineers and had them, explain it to me. And essentially, it's a win-win all around. The example that Ms. Landing gave, the person's not in a flood zone, they don't have to, that 2 feet only applies if you're actually in a flood zone. So this wouldn't apply in that situation in a large number of properties throughout the town. In situations where it does apply, as far as like a new residential construction home, they would recoup the extra cost in building that house. It would take anywhere from 3 to 5 years approximately to recoup that money due to the savings on your FEMA flood insurance. So really, yes, there is, I guess the one argument against it could be that it could cost you a little bit more money up front, but that money for that individual is saved over the long term, as well as the reduction in rates all across the town. And so really, even from a anti-development or a pro-development perspective, I think it's a win-win in both respects. So.
All right. All right, so the motion before us is to approve the amendments. Is there any other discussion? All right, we'll do this by voice. All in favor of the amendments as presented by staff, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, so now we will vote on we are in discussion on the passage of the ordinance itself. We already have a motion for that. Is there any further discussion on the ordinance itself as amended? All right, all in favor of passage of the motion, the item as amended, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously.
Final reading, ordinance number 20065.
Committee action items, Finance Committee, approval of special recognition for employees. Mr. O'Rourke.
Thank you, Mayor. The Finance Committee reviewed the ability of the town to provide an employee recognition program in the form of a one-time payment to town employees in the amount of 1% of their salary, but not less than $500. So instead of a ceiling, you have like a basement. As such, I move that council consider this special recognition. And I place that in the form of a motion.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? I have a question. Is this just a program to do it, or is this or are we voting to approve the expenditure of that at this time?
I believe that we're voting for this expenditure to be a part of this budget. And once we take action, if it passes, that it will be instituted.
Okay.
My second is the same.
Okay. I wasn't sure if we were just saying we can do it or that we are going to do it.
This is a motion to do it.
Gotcha. All right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion?
I have a question.
Okay.
Is this in lieu of 4%
Yes, ma'am.
increase in?
Yes. You recall when we started the year and we had several, I think there were virtual meetings, and we had to make pretty drastic budget adjustments and reductions. So the raises that were proposed at the beginning of the fiscal year were halted, and those are not proposed to go forward. What we learned as the months went on, I think you recall back then, we said, let's just see how things progress over time. And we learned that the impacts of what we planned for have not come to fruition. And so we have some wiggle room. The amount in the motion is about $400,000, and that's the proposal in front of you.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Landing.
So we discussed this in the Finance Committee, and just to clarify, everybody knows what a tough year it's been for so many people in so many ways, basically everybody in so many ways. And our staff, our first responders, our public service folks, obviously our fire and police, and really our entire staff has been amazing in the way that they have performed and how they've kept up with everything. They've really made our town proud in so many ways, and even with things that, if we think back to June with a protest rally that could have been awful, and in the sense, yes, they get the protest, but the turnout in the outcome in downtown Charleston was really not good for the community. And here it was handled so well by our staff and by our first responders. There's just been so many different things. If we asked them to do something, they more than stepped up to the plate. And so this is a way of saying, okay, you didn't get a raise this year like you normally would because of all these tough things about the finances of all communities, but here's a way that we can say thanks anyway. And it just happens to be at this time of the year. It's not meant to be a holiday bonus, but it just comes kind of at a nice time for a lot of folks. So.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chapman.
Mayor, some of you may remember, back when we were going through the budget, I asked for something like this because we were in the middle of the pandemic, and our employees were the best. And they are the best in the area. We sit where we do today under this pandemic because our employees have stepped up and done more. They've done more because we haven't had individuals be hired. People have had to do 2 jobs. Our police department, our fire department, our public service are in the middle of this COVID every day with our citizens. The recreation department did a fantastic job with how they were able to implement, before most other communities, allowing our citizens as well as our children to get out of the house, be able to do something constructive, to have some fun. So, and our finance department has done fabulous keeping us solvent where some other communities may not be as fortunate. So for all those reasons, I think this is something that is appropriate. It's a one-time thing, and it recognizes the tremendous job our employees have done on our behalf. We're where we are because of our employees, not because of any of us. We are where we are today because of what our employees have done for this community.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am, Ms. Corley.
And also, good job to Eric and I know that, and everybody else with the town, but we also gave Remember, through the HR committee, we gave employees some extra perks in lieu of the 4%, so some extra comp time, vacation time, some insurance stuff. I like this. My only thing was just those straight across bonuses, or, I wish there was more, I wish there was a way to do it, I don't know, merit pay or performance, or, I don't know. I mean, I'm gonna say yes, of course, but I just wish there was a way to, I don't know. Does that make sense? Just have a little something behind it. I'm all about a performance review. Can you guys tell?
right.
That was it.
Any further discussion? All right, we won't repeat the motion.
Mr.
I
Mayor?
think. Yes, sir.
So, as Ms. Corley said, I will vote for this, and I think our staff has earned this recognition and this token of appreciation for all the reasons that are mentioned. I do think it's important to just take a step back and just realize that there are a lot of industries and a lot of people in our town who did not get raises, who actually got a pay cut, who will not get bonuses. And so while, yes, we're doing a little bit better financially than maybe we had thought, so there's some room in our budget, I just think it's important to realize that there's a lot of people all across town who will not be in this position.
Thank you. Right. Time to vote. A yes vote is to approve the motion. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. This moves us to item 10, council new business, adoption of a resolution of a MOU between the Mount Pleasant Police Department and whatever AC HITDA is. Huh? HIDA Group, got it.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion to approve in a second. We're in discussion. I understand this is a drug enforcement matter.
Yes, sir, it's a federal drug enforcement arm or agency that works both in the Atlanta area and Charleston area. This is going to allow us to access their database for our automatic license plate readers that we recently purchased. So that helps us get that pertinent data, use their data that they already have to further our investigations. Much like the MOUs you approved in the past, that were so successful, as you saw in the press conference today.
Okay, yep, and congratulations on that. Thank you for operation well done. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Resolution 20111.
There is no council old business, and I understand from the clerk today, due to a family emergency, that all of the applications for the Cultural Arts and Pride Commission were not able to be processed and disseminated. They're not running up against the time deadline. So in order to consider everyone, we will defer that for a month so that everybody gets a shot. There is no post-executive session. Is there a motion that we adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Thank you.